Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for your participation in the Critical Issues Forum online teachers workshop. So today, I would like to introduce some useful resources for your research projects directly related to nuclear risk reduction, crisis prevention in a time of international turbulence. This year's topic. So I would like to introduce some examples. So of course, you can find more resources, but I thought it would be useful if we could provide some good resources. And sometimes it's very difficult to find reliable resources. Especially recently, there are so many fake news. So it's very important to use very reliable resources when you conduct this type of research activities. So let me introduce some of the useful resources. Okay, so let me start with some general resources. So these are not specifically for this year's topic, but in order for you to study the specific topic, of course, you need to understand some basic issues on nuclear-related issues. So, of course, the first place you need to go is Critical Issues Forum website, and also CIF Teachers Workshop Lectures webpage. We are posting all of the lecture slides and lecture videos, so please make sure to watch all of those lectures. I also want to encourage go to Nuclear Threat Initiative's website, especially Nuclear Threat Initiative, the tutorial pages. So all the contents for the NTI's tutorials are created by CNS, our center's experts. And these are very good educational resources. So let me just quickly go through one of the couple of the tutorials. So Nuclear 101. So this tutorial is basically kind of similar to what Dr. Ferenc Darnaki-Veres provided. So through this tutorial, you will learn basic science of nuclear energy and nuclear weapons related issues. And good thing about this tutorial is you can learn on your pace, and it's very, it's quite basic and mainly targeting college students and high school students. Of course, it is not easy topic, but I think this is a very good place to start if you would like to study more about nuclear science. Also, this Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty tutorial. Okay, through this tutorial, you will learn the basic issue about Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So, as I mentioned, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty is a cornerstone of the international non-proliferation regimes. And Ms. Sarah Bidgood talked about NPT in her lecture. So this can be very good supplementary educational resource when you when you view Sarah's lecture. Okay, let me move to the next page. So again, these are some general resources. Especially this year, this Arms Control Association, this is one of the non-proliferation disarmament related research institute in the US, and they are located in Washington, DC. They do really great job to do research and create online materials. So I highly encourage you to visit this website. I always encourage you to use the Arms Control Association website, in addition to CNS website, but particularly this year, nuclear risk reduction. And when we study US-Russia relationship and Iran's nuclear deal, they have a very good articles and analysis on their website. So I want to encourage you to take a look at their website. Also, Nuclear Threat Initiative, again, has a very good glossary. So I also want to, if you encounter some difficult terms that you wanted to make sure what does it mean, I encourage you to use Nuclear Threat Initiative glossary. Okay, then another good place is, of course, United Nations website. United Nations has a very, very huge, gigantic website. So I put some specific pages for you to study this specific topic. Sorry, I didn't mean to go back to. Okay, so let's see. Okay, sorry about that. So I wanted to show this page, United Nations Audio Visual Library of International Law. If you go there, there you can also find some video clips and photos, and these are all like a free, and if you are going to use this for the educational purposes, you just need to cite correctly, so you don't need to worry about the like a copyright or anything. And this nuclear notebook from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. This is a very reliable resources, of course, and very convenient. Nuclear notebook is, I would say, one of the best resources if you would like to know how many nuclear weapons exist and which country has how many nuclear weapons. So this is a very useful resources, of course. Okay, then again, continue on this general resources. Sometimes this kind of very general website, what is nuclear, and sometimes Wikipedia or how stuff works. This kind of a website is also useful, but whenever you use this type of very general website, I still want to encourage you to go to some specialized website and compare if there are any erroneous information. But generally speaking, I think Wikipedia and how stuff works are relatively reliable. So this Federation of American Scientists, they are also similar to Arms Control Association and our institute. They are very specialized research institute in the field of non-proliferation, disarmament, and arms control. So this specific nuclear information project is very convenient for you to find the world nuclear weapon status. So, okay. Then now let me move to some specific topic related resources. So, of course, one of the major issues we need to study is the US Russia nuclear weapons, US-Russia relations and the US-Russia nuclear weapons status. this new U.S. nuclear weapons policy, this is again from the Arms Control Association, written by Darrell Kimball. I found this is a very good article, succinctly explaining the recent dangerous situation or policy of the United States nuclear weapons policy. So this is a highly recommendable. And as Dr. Nikolai Sokov said, there are lots of reasons to be pessimistic, but this article clearly explains why current situation is so dangerous. So this is a very good article. Okay. Okay. Of course, there are so many articles on that. So intermediate range nuclear force, INF treaty related issues. So again, these are very selected and reliable sources. So I encourage you to read these articles. Of course, you can find good articles and useful resources from like a major media site such as CNN or Reuters. But be careful, some medias are often biased and take some specific political stance. So I encourage you to start with some specialized website. Okay, so now I'm showing some good, interesting, and useful resources when you study U.S. nuclear weapons policy, especially the U.S. nuclear posture review. So this one was written by our center's expert, Dr. Jeffrey Lois, for the Nuclear Threat Initiative's website. So in this article, he described the new nuclear posture review that was issued by the Trump administration earlier this year. Also, this one, it's a very interesting resource. So I highly recommend this. This one is very scary, but interesting. So it's launch under attack feasible. So as this year's topic covers the accidental nuclear weapons use or intentional nuclear weapons use, and this slide showed how the nuclear launch decision making will be made by the president. And as this article said, the president is the only person who can decide whether or not the United States is going to launch a nuclear attack, which is very scary. And I'm sure that you have heard or read the relevant news articles when Donald Trump became president. So this is very interesting but scary scenario, but very educational. You will learn how the current decision making to launch nuclear weapons is very scary. So, and if you are interested in, you may also want to take a look at the full text of nuclear posture review. It's long, but you can also find a summary of the nuclear posture review. So now let me move to the Iran nuclear deal and the US withdrawal from the JCPOA. So all of these are, most of them are from a bulletin of the atomic scientist. The bulletin of the atomic scientist. I think you have heard of this journal and organization. So this is also very reliable research institute, specifically dealing with nuclear or WMD, or they also conduct research on environmental issues and global warming, but they do amazing work on the nuclear weapons related topics. So these are all highly recommendable. Then North Korea. So there are so many articles on North Korea's nuclear issues and North Korea's the Singapore summit and what the future looks like. So it's important to understand the facts, the current situation very well. It's so easy to be swayed by not so reliable news resources. So I hope that students are going to start with these reliable resources. And one of them is that this is a fact-based source, of course. Our center created North Korea's missile test database. So when you look at this database, you can find when North Korea conducted the missile test and how many times they did and what kind of missile they launched. So this may be also interesting resources for the students to look at. Okay, yeah, since there are so many articles, we wanted to guide you to this CNS expert collection of analysis on North Korea. Especially after the Singapore summit, our center's experts were interviewed by many media outlets, and there are so many articles and news media appearances. So if you could go to this page, this is a compilation of all the analysis by the CNS staff members. Okay, so now let me move to the some analytical analysis on the multilateral non-proliferation related issues. Of course, given the recent uncertainty in the international situation, the international non-proliferation treaties are also facing lots of challenges, especially as we mentioned in the lecture, towards the 2020 NPT review conference. There are so many issues to be solved, or there are so many issues that may not be solved before the 2020 NPT review conferences. So these are good articles by very reliable former diplomats or former General Director of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Dr. Hans Blix. He was the former IAEA Director General, and he's now 90 years old, but he is still very active and writing and talking on these important issues. So I would like to encourage you to take a look at these articles. Okay. Continuing from previous slides, these are also NPT related articles. And this one, the NPT at 50. So this year, 2018 was the 50th anniversary of the signing of the NPT, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. So this, you can find a very useful historical timeline and some summary of the NPT. So it's very convenient resource if you would like to take a look at, if you would like to study the history of the NPT quickly. Now, another important treaty we studied is the ban treaty, the Nuclear Weapons Ban Treaty. The formal name is the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Acronym is TPNW. But I think a lot of people are still calling the ban treaty. So this treaty was adopted last year. So it's been over 1 year. So currently there are, since the adoption of the treaty, there have been some development. So I would encourage you to go to some of these articles to understand what the current status of the treaty. And perhaps this international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, ICAN, the last year's Nobel Peace Prize laureate, they have a very good website as well. And from this website, you can learn their recent activities, but you can also learn, if you go to the treaty section, you will see full text of the treaty, status of signature ratification, and the government position, and some photos of a negotiation. So I need to reiterate that this treaty has not entered into force yet, because this treaty was opened for signature September last year. Then after 50 countries have ratified, this treaty is going to enter into force. So it's interesting to follow what the current status is. Then, whenever we study nuclear weapons, nuclear crisis, I always want to encourage you to study the actual impact of the use of nuclear weapons. And the best way, and perhaps the only way that you can really understand what the actual impact of the use of nuclear weapons is, you listen to atomic bombing survivors, Hibakusha testimony. And of course, it's always best to go to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but it's not easy. So fortunately, there are so many excellent online materials. So these are all video recordings of the Hibakusha testimonials, and the Japanese Foreign Ministry also created a very good website where you can listen and view the video of and there are many different languages. Actually, not too many, but English, Japanese, Chinese, Korean. So yeah, there's very similar website, like a People's Decade for Nuclear Abolition. This is also a good compilation of testimonial. So you may want to take a look at this website. And as I mentioned, these are some examples. So if you find some other websites that you think is very useful, I really appreciate if you could share such websites or resources with us, with all the other CIF participants. So now, let me also introduce some of the new analysis done by our center CNS experts. So Dr. Jeffrey Lewis, as I already mentioned, he is one of the most, he's one of the leading experts in this field. And in fact, he published a book this year on the title, The 2020 Commission. So I didn't include a book in these resources, but I would like to encourage you to take a look at that book. And Senator Samnam, he's a board member of our center. And as you know, he's a co-chair of the Nuclear Threat Initiative, and he has extensive experience in US-Russia nuclear related issues. And Dr. Sokov, who also gave the lecture to CIF teachers, he also published many articles, especially on nuclear issues in Russia and the US-Russia relations. So these are some of the examples. And Goha Mukhanova, she's also a CNS staff member, but she is now in Vienna. And her article is, this article is very good, and you can understand the nuclear weapons ban treaty and what's going to happen next after the negotiation. So if you would like to study some country-specific issues, again, Arms Control Association has excellent resources, and also this Nuclear Threat Initiative is a country profile. This is a really, very educational and comprehensive. So NTI website, CNS experts contribute for the NTI website. So these are very reliable resources. So if you would like to study more in-depth information about, say, North Korea, you can find very detailed information about nuclear and the missile program of North Korea. Okay, so now let me move to some multimedia and films and movies on nuclear weapons related issues. So these are all documentary of the Hibakusha, including Hibakusha testimonials and what happened when the bomb was dropped in Hiroshima. So these are very good educational resources. So I encourage you to take a look at some of them. And now, okay, so these are the movies. So The Man Who Saved the World. This movie, you might have heard of this movie. So this is documentary, and the Soviet nuclear, this person, Mr. Petrov, unfortunately he passed away recently, but this is a very good, how he saved the world. Basically, he didn't follow the direction from his boss. then he did not launch nuclear missiles. This is a very scary story, but this is a real story. And this war game, this is a little bit old, but still very relevant, classic. And I'm sure that many of you might have watched this war game, but this movie eloquently tells how the false alarms can cause the actual nuclear war. So yeah, this is also very good movie if you want to study nuclear weapons. And this Doctor Strangelove, this is a very old, the classic. And I guess some teachers may know this movie. And it's a political satire and a black comedy. But that this could happen even now. This could really, the similar thing might happen even recently. So in the recent world, so you may want to view this movie. Okay, then there are some Japanese, these are anime, and in this corner of the world, this came 2 years ago, and the very popular movie in Japan, and there is an English version. So this is not really like a history of atomic bomb or people who was affected by atomic bomb, but by watching this movie, you will see like a culture and a life of the people who lived in Hiroshima, and how it affects how the nuclear atomic bomb that was dropped in Hiroshima affected in people's life. So this is, if you are interested in, I encourage you to watch this movie. Okay, and the Barefoot Again is also, this one is more directly talking about the effects of nuclear weapons. And I understand that this movie was translated, actually this was also anime, and this anime was a manga book, was a comic book. This was kind of a comic book, but this was translated into many different languages. Okay, now I want to move to some podcast and some other multimedia resources. And this one is a relatively short interview with Mr. Daryl Kimball. He's the executive director of the Arms Control Association, and I already included his articles. But this one is a interview, so audio recording, and in his interview he explained what is arms control, and what the current status is. So it's a very basic issue, but I thought this is really relevant to this year's topic. So I highly encourage you to watch this. Listen to this podcast. And this Nuke Map by Alex Wellstern. So this is an interactive map, and you can select the type of nuclear weapons and which city you want to drop nuclear weapons, which is very scary. So yeah, I'm not gonna do this right now, but here you can select any cities and any type of nuclear weapons. Then once you detonate, you will see what's the impact of the such weapons. This is very scary, but at the same time, it's very good resource to understand the effect of nuclear weapons. And if you want to use some photos, as I mentioned, I encourage you to go use the public domains, such as United Nations, International Atomic Energy Agency, and the CTBTO organization. Here you will find many relevant photos, and you can use it without worrying about the copyright. Again, you just need to cite appropriately. So from this point, these are the list of useful websites that organization that you may want to take a look at. And international organization, of course, United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs and the United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research. This is a part of the UN organization, but this organization is specifically conducting research on the disarmament issues. And these are some non-governmental organizations, of course, CNS, and this is CNS Vienna Center, VCDNP, and Arms Control Association, of course. So again, it's so important to use reliable resources. So I want to encourage you to start with these organizations. There are so many organizations, so of course you can select any of these, but whenever you have a chance, just to take a look at these websites. And again, some of the organizations, like of course, International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, ICAN, this organization is taking, this is an advocacy group. So specifically advocating one specific policy, meaning to abolish nuclear weapons and to create a new treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons. And this goal has been accomplished last year, of course, because of the ban treaty was adopted. So, and also this Nuclear Age Peace Foundation, this is also to some extent similar to the ICAN and taking some advocacy. So compared to our institute, Center for Non-Proliferation Studies, they are taking a specific policy, like advocating a specific policy. But our organization is more analytical, and of course, each staff member can have his or her own opinions, and everybody has a different opinions. But most likely, when we publish like a research paper, usually we analyze policy and we come up with some policy recommendation. But you will see the difference between advocacy organizations and research-oriented organization. Now, nowadays, there are many blogs, and anyone can create blogs, of course. So that's why it's so important to use some reliable blogs. So Arms Control Wonk, this is one of the best blogs in the field of arms control, because this was founded by our center's Dr. Jeffrey Lewis. And I think this is the most used popular blog in this field. So everybody, yeah, I would say everybody in this field knows about this blog. And this is yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that there are many unreliable blogs, because anyone can create blogs. So please be careful if you are going to cite something. As you know, nationalist or racist or anyone could create blogs. And if you while you are doing conducting research and you encounter some like a blogs or paper analysis that may sound a little bit strange or unreliable, but you are not sure, I suggest that you contact me or you contact, then I think I can find out if such articles are reliable or written by someone who advocates very strong policy or something. So I just wanted to be aware that there are blogs that are not reliable. So that's why I listed these blogs that can be trusted. And the Federation of American Scientists also have a very good blog. Okay, then there are lots of podcasts. And the Arms Control Wonk does have its own podcast. And I download this onto my iPhone, and sometimes I listen to while I'm doing exercise or walking. But it's very interesting and also very educational. And of course, these are just some example. And you can find a lot of different things. But I just wanted to introduce some of the podcast. And the Impossible State, North Korea. This was also operated by one of the leading North Korean experts, Victor Cha. And this is also reliable and interesting. And the Diplomat, Asian Politics, Geopolitics podcast is also very reliable. And of course, since this is Asia geopolitics, their focus is Asia, but they do a lot of good research on North Korea, China, and nuclear-related issues. Finally, I wanted to also encourage you to subscribe CNS YouTube. We often conduct seminars, and with the speaker's approval, we videotape and post it on the website. As you see, in the summer, the High Representative for Nuclear, United Nations High Representative for Disarmament, Ms. Izumi Nakamitsu, came to CNS, and she gave a very excellent talk. This is just one example, so I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay, so again, I introduced a lot of resources, but there are so many resources, so you are more than welcome to use different resources. But I just want to make sure that it's so important to use reliable resources. And we will post this on the website. But in addition to this PowerPoint presentation, we also created a Word document that contains further resources. So please you take a look at that document where you can find additional resources. Okay, so if you have any question, please feel free to contact me. And if you find any interesting resources that we did not cover in this PowerPoint or in the Word document, please feel free to share any interesting resources that you will find. Okay, thank you. So I will stop recording here.